Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the technical session on Conduit Surveying of the Annual International Research Conference 2022, Faculty of Built Environment and Spatial Sciences of General Sir John Kothawala Defence University. This session will be evaluated by Architect, Associate Professor Dr. M.N.R. Wijetunga, Dr. Ravihansa Chantilaka, and Planner Dr. Nilupulee Perera. This session will be chaired by Professor Yasangika Sandanayake, former head of the Department of Building Economics, Faculty of Architecture, University of Moratuwa. Now I kindly invite the rapporteur of the session, Mr. A.A.R.K. Amarathunga, to introduce the session chair.
Good morning, everyone. I have received great opportunity to introduce our chair of the session in Conduit Surveying in 15 IRC 2022. She is Professor Yasangika Sandanayake, the former head of the Building Economics, former head of the Department of Building Economics, University of Moratuwa. She graduated as the Conduit Surveyor from the Department of Building Economics from University of Moratuwa and has obtained her PhD from the University of Wolverhampton, United Kingdom. Throughout her career, Professor Sandanayake has rendered her expertise in many administrative positions. She was the former director of the Postgraduate Studies Division, Faculty of Architecture, University of Moratuwa. At present, she is the Scientific Committee Chair of the annual World Construction Symposium, as well as the Joint Editor of Built Environment Project and Asset Management Journal, which is published by Emerald in UK. She is also a member of Global Leadership Forum for Construction Engineering and Management Program. Her research interests span across in the spheres of value management, performance management, lean construction, construction supply chain management, and facilities management. She has published over 100 journals and conference papers in the fields of built environment. Professor Sandanayake has received many national and international awards, few as Emerald Research Award, FARU 2017 Award, and University of Moratuwa Research Excellence Award. I have to add something from my heart to enhance your iconic image. Madam, you are my guru of research culture, which I built up during my postgraduate under your supervision. The accumulated knowledge is so immense, from which my student populated ultimately benefits. So we are warmly welcome you. Dear Professor, I cordially invite you to chair the session. Thank you.
Hello. Very good morning to all of you. Rector, Southern Campus, Major General LCR Jayasooriya, Dean, Faculty of Built Environment and Spatial Sciences, Dr. H. Lakmal, and all senior professors, emeritus professors, and academic staff members of KDU campus, and all distinguished guests, students. It is very nice to see you for the 6th consecutive time, and this is the 6th time that I'm chairing this session on quantity surveying. So it is a great pleasure for me to join with you every year, and I must thank Ravi for that introduction on me. Before we start this session, I have a couple of instructions to give you. In this session, there are 4 presentations, and each presenter will get 12 minutes for their presentation, and we'll indicate you at the 9th minute that you have 3 more minutes to complete your presentation. And we'll take all Q&A session at the end of all 4 presentations. So may I invite the presenters of this session to the head table, please. Okay, so all the presenters are here. So let's start our first paper presentation. The title of this paper is Factors Affecting the Implementation of E-Procurement for Government Sector in Sri Lanka. There are 5 authors in this paper, KanaheraArachchi, Weerasinghe, Aryaratne, Jayaweera, Samarasinghe, and Karunaratne, 6 authors. So the presenting authors are WLGD Weerasinghe, Aryaratne, and LPMI Jayaweera. So I'd like to invite you to the podium for the presentation.
A very good morning to all of you. We are from Sri Lanka Institute of Information Technology, and this is our research about factors affecting the implementation of e-procurement for government sector in Sri Lanka. So we hope next 15 minutes of our presentation will consist of a discussion that will timely and relevant to our country. So this is the presentation outline, and when moving to the background of the study, first let me explain what is the e-government procurement. Simply, it means the process which government buys goods and services from their suppliers electronically. In the modern business environment, the procurement function is most fundamental component to every organization. As a result, procurement strategies have become increasingly important to the overall organization success. Emergence of business-to-business e-commerce technology has led to development of electronic procurement technology, which is important function in a business. So, along with that, benefits of such system are increased transparency, reduced corruption, less prone to mistakes, and time and cost savings. So along with that introduction, we have mentioned our problem statement. We as a country annually spend around quarter of government expenditure of public sector, which amounts to nearly 500 billion rupees. Currently, Sri Lankan public procurement marketplace suffers from four main weaknesses, which are information asymmetries, high transaction cost, anti-competitive practices, and high potential for corruption. So, in this regard, a key activity proposed is establishment of electronic portal for government sector. So, I think it is very timely and relevant to our country. So, in order to address this research problem, however, in 2019, Sri Lanka has launched a government procurement system, which is called Promise EGP system. But as a result of our observation, this system has not totally implemented by all the government sectors in Sri Lanka. So this study will examine the relationship between identified factors and the EGP implementation. So, however, this is the managerial problem that we addressed regarding this area, and the empirical gap of our study will provide the academic literature focusing this area, since this is the first empirical study focusing the Promise EGP system in Sri Lanka. So, in order to give the solution for this research problem, we have mentioned our research question: what is the relationship between EGP implementation and technological, organization, and environment factors? So, in order to address this research question, we have mentioned our research objective to measure the relationship between EGP implementation and technological, organizational, and environmental factors. Significance of the study. This study would be benefit to all the government organizations to have a better awareness of procurement officers, general attitudes towards electronic procurement, thus them to prepare accordingly for EGP system. Moving forward, this is the literature review of our study. These are the variables that we have gathered from past literature. When we take technological factor, researcher concluded that the human factors play a more important role than technological factors in implementing e-government procurement system. When we take organizational factors, authors from Kenya have stated that the organizational process has a great impact for EGP implementation. Apart from that, when we take environmental factors, many researchers revealed that the majority of suppliers have positively impacted for the EGP implementation. So when we take our independent variable, author from India has stated that technology and organization context variables were significantly affected for EGP implementation. So rest will be carried by Madhushan. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginny. Now we move on to a conceptual framework which developed based on high-rank formulary studies. In here, our dependent variable was electronic government procurement implementation, and we divided our independent variables into three main factors such as technological, organizational, and environmental factors. Also, you can see we categorize these factors to sub-factors. Moving on hypotheses, these six will be the hypotheses of our study, which represents null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis as well. Furthermore, in results and discussion section, we'll explain how we have accepted alternative hypotheses for our research. When move on to the methodology part, our research was conducted as a quantitative approach, and Likert scale questionnaire used as a data collection method. For our analysis, we use Pearson correlation coefficient and SPSS software used to analyze our data set. When talk about our population and sample size, our study population was 275 government organizations in Sri Lanka, according to the Government Information Center, and our sample size was 162 procurement divisions of government organizations in Sri Lanka, according to the Morgan's table. For our sampling technique, we use convenience sampling technique. Furthermore, we had received 7 responses, and that was 43% of our sample size. In next, this is the structure of our Likert scale questionnaire. It's a 5-point Likert scale questionnaire. It starts with strongly disagree and ends with strongly agree. From this onwards, I am going to present about most important part of our research, which is results and discussion. For our analysis, we use Pearson correlation coefficient. So correlation is a statistical method for determine how closely two variables are linked. Under Pearson correlation analysis, we mention all the correlation between dependent and independent variables. When take the technological factor, our findings determined that there was a positive moderate correlation between technological infrastructure and electronic government procurement implementation, as R value is equal to 0.436. Furthermore, our results also align with the results of Arunga and Paul 2017 revealed that there was a positive moderate correlation between technological infrastructure and electronic government procurement implementation in their study. In next, findings, we indicated there was a positive moderate correlation between network application and electronic government procurement implementation. Also, as R value is equal to 0.483. Furthermore, in previous study conducted by Bandara 2020 also stated there was a positive relationship between these two variables. So, I will invite Weerasinghe to continue with the rest of the results. Over to you.
Thank you, Madhushan. Moving forward, when we move on to the next slide, under the organizational factor, we have taken 3 variables. As you can see in the slide, the first variable, which is top management factor, and the government, there is a positive relationship between top management and the government procurement implementation, as the Pearson correlation is equal to 0.535. We found that our results corresponded with another results of another study conducted in year 2015. Since the correlation is 0.515 in the knowledge variable, we can see the correlation is there is a positive moderate relationship between e-government procurement implementation and the knowledge variable. Moving forward, under the human capacity awareness, as you can see in the slide, there is a strong positive moderate relationship between human capacity and awareness, as the Pearson correlation is 0.716. Under the environmental factor, we have taken supply readiness variable. You can see there is a positive moderate relationship between supply readiness and the e-government procurement implementation, as the Pearson correlation is 0.562. Therefore, all the significance levels are less than 0.05. The study observed that the correlation among dependent and independent variables was significant. All the variables are positively correlated with the e-government procurement implementation, so we can conclude that all the alternative hypotheses are accepted. Moving to the limitations of the study. Our research has been conducted since economic crises were happening in the country. So when collecting data, we had to face numerous challenges, such as we couldn't reach the government employers because of the transportation issues and the roster schedules in the government institutions. And also we didn't get a proper feedback to the questionnaires and the delays in the respondents. Moreover, we couldn't get a proper information because some informations were highly confidential. Moving to the future researchers. Researchers can do the exact same study with the private organizations or one specific organization. So there are lots of other factors might affect the e-government procurement implementation, such as corruption, government support, ethical pressure. So research can be done with other factors too. And also research can do research about enhancing the promise system. Moreover, this can be done from the supplier perspective and do more about sustainable procurement practices. So these are the references that we have used in our study. Finally, behalf of all the co-authors of this research, I would like to express my thanks to all the respondents who participated to generate those valuable results and the authors of literature that we referred, as well as I like to convey our heartfelt appreciation for conference panel to for the Kurdi University for selecting our research. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the three presenters and the research team for completing that presentation on time. That presentation is very interesting and informative. So let's move to our next presentation. The topic is on the impact of material management on cost overruns in construction projects in Sri Lanka. So let's hear to the team. The authors are SMTN Aryaratne, SD Jayasooriya, and KT Withanage. So Miss Abeyrathne, it's over to you.
Good morning to all. Today I'm here to do my research presentation on the impact of material management on cost overruns in the construction projects in Sri Lanka. Basically, this is the content of my research. I'm going to discuss the background, problem statement, objectives, literature review, methodology, data analysis, and conclusions and recommendations. Basically, the main keyword of cost overrun is identified to be an inevitable circumstance within the construction projects in every country. Therefore, basically, if we identify the causes to occur cost overruns, there are many, such as inaccurate cost estimation, price escalation, improper material management, poor planning and scheduling, changes in government regulations, and design changes. Out of these several causes, I have selected the improper material management to discuss its impact on cost overrun in the construction projects in Sri Lanka. The main problem statement of my research is how to mitigate cost overruns through proper material management in the construction industry in Sri Lanka. If I were to justify this problem, basically, depending on the type of the project, material cost was identified to be account up to 60% or more of the entire total project cost. Therefore, the identification on how to reduce cost overruns through proper materials management is essential to be discovered to avoid adverse effect on the project activities. The research objectives are to study the concept of material management in construction projects, to identify the relationship between the material management and cost overruns, to identify the issues of material management on cost overruns in the construction projects, and to suggest the solutions to overcome cost overrun through proper material management in construction projects in Sri Lanka. If I were to identify, we need to first decide on what is material management. Basically, based on the past research findings, it was identified that material management is the process of organizing, implementing, managing the right source of materials at the correct time and place with the required quality, which is appropriate for low-cost construction. Other than that, it should be contemplated at all phases of the construction process throughout the project duration. The main independent variable of my research is material management, and the dependent variable is cost overrun. Under the independent variable of material management, I have identified 6 components of material management based on the past researchers. They are material planning, vendor analysis, storage and inventory, material purchasing, supply and distribution, and on-site material handling. Based on the past research findings, material planning include identification of material requirement, material documentary maintenance, delivery frequency, and temporary facility planning. As the next one, vendor analysis. When we selecting vendors for our construction projects, we need to evaluate material prices, quality, delivery time, inventory held by suppliers, and flexibility. Of course, these are effect in increasing the project performance. The next one is the storage and inventory. Basically, the time between ordering and receiving items is highly unpredictable within the storage and inventory. We need to consider more about storage and inventory since the material required to process to the site from the warehouse or the storage. This process is a recurrent process within the construction project. The next one is material purchasing. It includes the overview of the purchase, material order request, placement of the order, keeping and matching the records, ordering and arriving of materials, follow-up purchase order, and transfer materials. The next one is supply and distribution. Basically, supply delays happens due to quick purchase, wastage during stockpiling, handling and transporting of huge material quantities without meeting the production needs on site. As the last one of the 6 components, it is on-site material handling. Movement, placement, and usage are the main constituents in handling, and it must be directed to minimize wastage, vandalism, theft, and shortage within the site. The main research gap is based on the past studies in Sri Lankan construction context. I have identified there's a research conducted on the sources of construction material wastage in Sri Lanka. In my research, I have conducted it on the impact of material management on cost overruns in the construction projects in Sri Lanka. This is the conceptual framework that I have developed to conduct my research. Regarding that, the 6 components of material planning: vendor analysis, storage and inventory, material purchasing, supply and distribution, on-site material handling, all these components were discussed based on the dependent variable of cost overrun. When developing the hypothesis for my research, both alternative and null hypotheses were developed to identify the relationship between the dependent variable and independent variables. Material planning, vendor analysis, storage and inventory, material purchasing, supply and distribution, on-site material handling. All these 6 components were developed hypotheses based on the dependent variable of cost overrun. The targeted population for my research include project managers, quantity surveyors, storekeepers, and site engineers of Sri Lankan construction industry. Here I will conduct both questionnaire survey and semi-structured interviews by targeting the population. As the main findings of the research, the impact of material management on cost overruns was identified. This coefficient table was acquired through the SPSS software. Based on the table that I have acquired through the SPSS software, the highlighted unstandardized beta value was considered to develop the equation of simply y equals mx plus c. According to that, the values were used to develop the equation. According to that, the highest value was acquired by the storage and inventory variable with 31.9%. The relationship assessment between material management and cost overruns. Based on this table also was acquired through the SPSS software by including the data that I was collected through the questionnaire survey. According to that, the highlighted part that all you can see, the significant total value for all the independent variables were marked below 0.01. Usually, if we were to prove that there is a relationship between variables, the significant value must be within 0.05 or below. Since all the variables recorded values less than 0.01, it means that all the variables have a positive relationship between the independent and dependent variables. Issues of material management on cost overruns. By the content analysis used for the data collected through questionnaire survey, this table and the graph was formed. According to that, the highest percentage with 81.6%, the majority of the issues were identified to be wastage of materials. Other than that, there are low quality material purchase, price escalation of materials, improper storage management, improper material handling, poor coordination and supervision, and many others, with including 13 issues. The solutions to overcome cost overruns through proper material management. Based on the semi-structured interviews that I have conducted, the solutions was identified. According to that, the selection of suitable suppliers by considering the material test certificate for the selected materials is important, and maintaining of proper documentary records of material inflow and outflow throughout the whole construction process. The establishment of proper material management profession within the site, such as material managers and material coordinators, adequate planning of materials within the construction projects, an additional cost beyond the allowable limit of wastage should be deducted from the subcontractor's payment certificate to avoid useless cost overruns within the construction project. Other than the solutions, the interviewees were suggested few concepts that could be adopted to material management in construction projects in Sri Lanka. Based on that, they are building information modeling, 3R concept, which include reuse, recycle, and reduce, value engineering concept, and life cycle cost analysis. The main conclusions that could be drawn from my studies are material management and cost overrun was identified to have positive relationship based on the components that are identified under the material management. The next one is storage and inventory have the highest impact to dependent variable of cost overruns. And the wastage of materials attain the majority out of the issues discovered. The last conclusion is BEAM, value engineering, 3R concept, and life cycle costing concept were suggested to adopt to the material management in Sri Lankan construction projects. These are the recommendations that I've concluded from my research. Based on that, the implementation of enterprise resource planning ERP systems with the requirement of major customization along with the characteristics of the local construction industry, preparation of separate comprehensive document system for material management at site, implementation of advanced work packaging AWP, where combining engineering and procurement in the early stage of construction project to align with the construction schedule work scope, just-in-time JIT approach to eliminate waste production within the project through proper delivery of materials. And the last recommendation is allocating competent personnel for the material management at site. These are the references that I have used during my study. Thank you.
Thank you, Abeyrathne and the team, because cost overrun is one of the major issues that our local industry face, so it is a very timely topic. Let's move to our third presentation. It is on specialized software usage among the quantity surveyors in Sri Lanka. The authors are TV Edirisinghe and KPSPK Bandara. So I would like to invite Mr. Bandara to deliver your presentation.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bandara. Today I'm going to present the research on specialized software usage among the quantity surveyors in Sri Lanka. So throughout my presentation, I'm going to discuss the background, problem statement, the objectives, literature review, methodology, findings, recommendation, and discussion. Today, the quantity survey's work is so complex. Due to the complexity of the construction projects, the quantity surveyor has to work very accurately and in a timely manner. When the projects get so much complicated, then the quantity surveyor cannot work manually, and he has to use further technologies to adapt with in line with the time as well as the best quality. During the last decades, the nature and the scope of the services provided by the quantity surveyor has been rapidly changed. Therefore, many software packages have been introduced to the market for the betterment of the and the development of the quantity surveyor's practice. But the problem is the construction industry is slowly adapting to use the technologies, and the whole industry is somewhat slow and getting less productivity. The quantity surveyors are still rely on the traditional methods of taking off and preparation of payment applications, certification of payments, all are used for all the activities. They are using the traditional methods. And they are not concerned in the IT information technologies, and they have not adapted that much technologies to enhance their productivity of the profession. Throughout this literature, it was found that there were three variables, mainly cost, the knowledge, and the readiness, which were basically the barriers for enhancing the productivity of the construction industry. As the cost, there were sub-components like cost of the installation of software and cost of the maintenance of this software, and some hidden costs such as installation of antivirus and protection methods. As the knowledge, there were some issues found in literature that the education and training requirements are still less in the construction professionals, and also the studies or the educational qualifications which has been into this information technology is still in a low stage. Then when it comes to the readiness, still the professionals in the construction industry are still in lack of preparedness, and they are still in a backward mind to adopt these IT solutions. For this research study, we have used this methodology. To find these barriers, we have used literature survey by using around 30 number of web articles, journal publications as the secondary data. And we have gathered in relevant data by using detailed questionnaires as well as semi-structured interviews. The population for the questionnaire was the industry experts within the quantity surveyors within the Sri Lankan construction industry, and it was used the simple random sampling method. For the semi-structured interviews, purposive sampling was used. The professionals were selected over 5 years experience within the Sri Lankan construction industry. Now let's come to major findings of this research study. As the objective one, it was to determine the level of specialized software usage among quantity surveyors in Sri Lanka. It was found through the questionnaire survey that the AutoCAD and MS Excel was the most common used software among the quantity surveyors. While using that, they have used some other softwares such as PlanSwift, Cubicost, then Costex, and Revit Architecture, and some other softwares which were found to be very less in the use. According to the data gathered from the expert interviews, again it was found that mostly common used softwares were AutoCAD and MS Excel. And the expert interpreted, or they explained their ideas that mostly the PlanSwift, Costex and Revit Architecture are some softwares that can be adapted to the Sri Lankan construction industry to enhance the productivity of the quantity surveying profession. When it comes to the objective 2, it was to identify barriers to adapt to the specialized software usage for the quantity surveying practice. The data was collected through questionnaire surveys and from the semi-structured interviews for this. From the results, it was found that the installation cost for the software was the biggest barrier to implement this usage of softwares, and the data collected was analyzed through the relative importance index. The same objective number 2, another sub-factor was the readiness for the practice of these new softwares, and it was found some subcomponents for that. First thing was the number 1 rank was less support from their senior staff as well as from the organization to implement new softwares to their organizations. Again, among the other factors that was found, that rank number 2 was the security and first-hand software experts. The number of first-hand software experts are less within their organizations. Again, some were backward in mind. They are not ready to use this software, and they are still rely on the existing softwares or existing methods to continue their career. Another subcomponent of this objective number 2, identify the barriers to adapting this new software to the industry, was the knowledge. For this knowledge, again, it was found that lack of experience with this software was the biggest barrier to implement this software usage among the quantity surveyors. While having that, there were some issues like they are not having proper educational qualifications for the use of these new softwares. Other thing was, except these educational qualifications, they should have properly done their training sessions and having certain understanding for the use of these softwares. It was also in a lack stage when it comes to the findings of this research. It was targeted as the objective 3 to identify the benefits of the specialized software usage to the quantity surveying profession and the construction firms. When we received the results of that, the biggest benefit when we used the software was the speed. They want very quick work. All the projects are required to complete on time. Therefore, the professionals are required to use this software to complete the project on time. In addition to that, it has increased the productivity. The increase in productivity has come to the rank number 2. In addition to them, there were certain other reasons or the benefits why the new softwares should be adapted for the construction industry. Among them, some were the accuracy, reduce the paperwork towards it goes towards the sustainability, as well as lower operational cost, and there can be minimal errors, and there will be some safety concerns also. As the objective number 4, it was to identify strategies to overcome the barriers implementing the specialized software usage among quantity surveyors. Out of the findings, it was found that the most of the experts have indicated that it should be included in their educational curriculum to include the relevant modules and enhance the students or the undergraduates or other relevant students' knowledge. And once they passed out from that, they have certain familiarity with the usage of the softwares, and once they come to the industry, they will be familiar with the existing softwares, and they can enhance the productivity of the construction industry. To come to the conclusion, it was found that there were so many benefits by using the specialized software among the quantity surveys in the Sri Lankan construction industry. Then it was found that the quantity surveyors still rely on the traditional methods used within the industry. As well as, while using these new specialized softwares, the construction industry the productivity can be enhanced while using these softwares. To come to recommendation, new knowledge should be transferred to the industry professional by using seminars or other self-studies, or it should be encouraged the quantity surveyors to have self-studies and even watch relevant videos and study them, and they should come to the practice of these new softwares. These are my representatives, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bandara. I heard that the presentation was originally supposed to be done by Edirisinghe, but because he's sick, so you had to take the challenge and do this presentation in the morning. So well done, Mr. Bandara. So our last presentation is on barrier analysis to implement building information modeling execution plan in Sri Lankan construction industry. The authors are G.K. Perera, M.K.M. Nilupulee, W.P. Kalpani, Y.R.W. Dissanayake, and KPSPK Bandara. So the presenter is Mr. Perera, so it's over to you.
Good day, everyone. It was a long, interesting day, and I appreciate your patience and attention for a few minutes. Topic of our research is barrier analysis to implement building information modeling execution plan in Sri Lankan construction industry. By the means of our research, I should mention this is not one individual's effort. This research was done by MKM Nilupulee, WLGD Kalpani, W Dissanayake, and by myself under the guidance of our beloved HOD sir, Mr. KPSPK Bandara. First of all, I would like to give a little heads up to this research before proceed with my presentation. All of you might be wondering what this study is all about. Because by the time we engage with collecting all the data and information required to complete this study, we got to know this was the first time in Sri Lankan history someone has addresses this segment of BIM to do a research. Actually, this study examined the current BIM techniques in Sri Lanka, BIM adoption in Sri Lanka, BIM awareness in the country's construction industry, and how an execution plan can help with BIM implementation, with the suggestions for overcome the identified barriers to implement execution plan in Sri Lankan construction industry. We have mainly focused onto the part of BEP, which expanded as BIM execution plan. For starters, I'll give an overview of my presentation. This is what I'm going to talk about today, and this is the flow of my presentation, starting from introduction, problem statement, research objectives, literature review, research methodology, data analysis, conclusion, and recommendation. So, what is BIM, or Building Information Modeling? Let me explain. BIM is hardly ever used in deconstruction, even though it is commonly held as a whole life cycle methodology. BIM has received a lot of interest in construction research and practice due to promising benefits of the ideal of having a complete, coherent, true digital representation of buildings. Further, can BIM explain as it is a process of modeling and link information from across and within disciplines and functions of a project, organization, or an industry. Further, simply it can be explained as making the construction easy by use of modern technology with introducing new techniques and supporting systems to the construction industry. Adopting to the BIM in the construction industry provides many benefits to the construction industry. From what we identified, BIM provides a common data environment for all the participants to exchange their data. The paradigm that will help create a shared working space for all stakeholders is revolutionary. In addition, benefits of BIM include cost and resource savings, increased efficiency and shorter project life cycles, improved communications, more opportunities for prefabrication and modular construction, and it will lead projects to have higher quality results. Then let's move on to our main subject of the research, which is BEP. So what exactly is BEP, or BIM execution plan? BEP is stated that to a specific project or set of projects. And a BEP is a useful tool that offers a systematized workflow and general pathway for strategic BIM execution. And according to the research done by Sun in 2015, it directs the overall vision of project and outlines the users of BEP and acts as a record of understanding of the stakeholders, and it is also known as a living document which needs to be reviewed continuously across the course of the project. Basically, it is a document. Further, can be explained as a key and dynamic document that defines the goals for the implementation of BIM methodology in a project. It addresses the requirement set by the client, defines the scope, users, process flow, roles, responsibilities, and milestone of the project lifecycle, and tasks and tools to be used in a construction project. Steps of BEP addresses identified from BIM project execution planning guide as follows. During the project planning, design, construction and operation phases, identify the high value of BIM users. The second step is using the process maps, design the BIM execution process. Thirdly, specify the information exchange for the BIM deliverables. Fourth and the last step of BIM execution plan is, according to execution planning guide, is create the framework for implementation, including the contracts, communication protocols, technology, and quality control. So next, I would like to move on to the problem statement. As I mentioned earlier, what BIM is and how BEP helps the construction, even though they help, there are limitations adopting them to the Sri Lankan construction industry. From literature survey, we found them as lack of internal BIM modeling expertise results in higher cost of training. Cybersecurity can create from external and internal or system failures. And Xing Lu in 2015 have mentioned that national standards are less and incomplete, high application cost, implementation process, lack of skilled workers, lack of professionals, and organizational and legal barriers are some of barriers to implement BIM execution plan in Sri Lankan construction industry. So now, let me have a chance to introduce you what our objectives are and what we are hoping from this research. Our first objective is to identify the awareness of BEP in Sri Lankan construction industry. Second objective of our research is to identify how an execution plan can help with the BIM implementation. Third, to determine the challenges to implementation BEP in Sri Lankan construction industry. Objective number 4 is suggestions for overcome the identified barriers to BEP. Research methodology. We conducted a literature survey, detailed questionnaire, and semi-structured interviews as to gather information and data about our research topic. For literature survey, we use web articles and journals as a population, and secondary data was our sampling technique, which we used to complete the literature survey. Then we shared a detailed questionnaire as a Google survey among 50 plus construction industry professionals, which consist of engineers, architects, quantity surveys, and academia. Simple random sampling technique was a technique we used for this. Then we conduct few semi-structured interviews with BIM experts who have more than 5 years of experience, and purpose sampling technique is the technique we use to analyze these. For the data analyzing, we use both qualitative and quantitative data analysis to derive the outcome of collected data. These are the graphical representations of what we achieve with the data we found on our objectives. For the objective number 1, out of 52 responses, 57 out of our first objective is to identify the BIM awareness in Sri Lankan construction industry, as I mentioned earlier. So from the questionnaire we shared, we got 52 responses, and out of that 52, 57.7% are already aware of BIM and BEP. And we asked what BIM software that they were most related to. And this is what we got as our outcome for that question. From the literature survey, we found that the most significances of BIM are cost saving, time saving, helping tool for management in projects, reduce errors, decision making tool, and BIM, and it helps to reduce the risk of the project. And these are the results of our of the data that we gathered from our detailed questionnaire, which successfully addressing the objectives of our research. Objective number 3. And objective number 4. So, the results showed that the primary obstacles to adoption and implementation of BEP were lack of documentation and legal barriers, and professionals are lack of knowledge of BIM in Sri Lanka and not enough support from Sri Lankan government, and the financial crisis that already facing in Sri Lanka, and lack of interconnected relationships between construction professionals and IT professionals in Sri Lanka, and resistance to change. Additionally, results showed that the effective use of BEP applications helps to alleviate the restrictions, and that the significance of BIM applications capabilities that I previously mentioned contribute to improving the effectiveness and efficiency of the Sri Lankan construction industry. And these are the recommendations that interviewees suggested for the improve the BEP in Sri Lankan construction industry. The first suggestion was, with the acknowledgement of the industry professionals, to use BIM in industry as a CPDs and seminars should be conducted. And the support given by the professional bodies such as IQSSL, IESL, RICS to the industry is suggested to be increased as well. And they have suggested to have a BIM hub in Sri Lanka with the support from the international professionals as well. As a conclusion of our research, we found that finally, with implementing these suggestions and suggestions, will probably, yes, that should result in higher quality, more effective and efficient project delivery in Sri Lankan construction industry. And these are some of references that we use to gather our data and information we require to complete this study. And thank you very much. I'm Perera.
Thank you all presenters for your interesting and informative presentations. Now we have come to the Q&A session. We'll take each paper one by one, and the audience is now open for the questions. If the other authors are in the audience, they also can involve in this during this Q&A session. They can provide answers if you think so. So let's start with our first presentation on factors affecting the implementation of procurement for e-procurement for government sector in Sri Lanka. Any questions from the audience?
Any kind of multiple linear regression analysis for this? Because that data wasn't indicated here, multiple linear regression, because we want to see the overall impact of each and every product, each and every factor what you have indicated. And the second question is, how practical by implementing all these procurementation work in the government sector. I'm talking about the practicality, right?
Switch on.
Thank you for raising the question. This system is such a beneficial system for our country because past researchers have mentioned that they did surveys and interviews from government sector. They have mentioned that this system increase the transparency between the buyer and the supplier and the reduce corruption from procurement, reduce corruption of procurement processes. So as a country, why don't we implement this kind of system for our country, because this is a very beneficial system for our government sector.
Can you explain us how this e-procurement will minimize the corruption in our construction industry, and to what extent the government organizations have implemented e-procurement?
Because this system has a transparency between the buyer and the supplier. So we think.
Again, I have another question. How you interpret that transparency? Because once you submit the document, that the technical evaluation committee doesn't have any kind of interaction between the supplier and whatever. Those discussions cannot be done, right? So then, in that case, other bidders also can have a chance to intervene.
Special NPA guideline, so it has to be adhered. So in order to avoid that corruption, and means systems are there. So what do you thinking other than that?
Yeah, so to what extent our government organizations have implemented e-procurement? Is it still at very early stages?
It is still at a shopping method. That means government can buy goods and services like stationery items, office equipments like that. So still this is at the very first initial state shopping method.
Procurement.
Single quotations, right? So that kind of work, direct purchasing, kind of work that can be implemented. But you know that I think you are a QSC student. Am I right? Businessman. So anyway, if we go for the advanced kind of bidding work, just like design and build kind of work, so those work, we cannot implement this kind of a e-procurement method. I think if it is, then it will be a big problem when we are working with all these things, because we cannot make such kind of a transparency to the outside. But for the certain kind of work, of course, I do agree with you, right? Just basically for a direct work or shopping. Right? I think it's better to revise your scope in that sense, right?
Yeah, I do agree with that.
Yes, sir.
So I will add something. I'm Commander Kulapati from Center for Research and Development. So that we also adhere during last couple of months that because we can't get the bidders and physically. So once what we do, we get the documents. So we have the system to, we can't open that. So same time that it's come to the some board of people in the Center for Research and Development. So then the date that we assign to the open, then only we can open. So in same time, we know that in government procedures, sometimes after the receiving the document, again we can add to these documents to the file. But if it is in the system, so nobody can add. If we add, if someone add that document, So we can trace very easily in the electronic system. But in physical system, in file system and all, if we add, it is very difficult to find out whether it is add or not. So in such a way, I think we can see the transparency of the system.
Any more questions to our first presenter?
I think now, as many speakers said, it will be very difficult for very comprehensive procurement processes. And now, like Dr. Lakmal said, for simple procurement processes like shopping, that may be all right. But now this transparency issue is, well protected by the national procurement guidelines. So when you are submitting a procurement document, that has to be submitted in triplicate, and one will be always kept under seal cover. So if there are any, what you call, interventions in between the process, that could be detected at the end. Because, you know, now after the procurement process, if the bidders are unsatisfied, they can appeal to the presidential secretariat, where there's an appeal board, and there are few examples in the recent past where the procurements were completely, rejected and asked for re-bidding, right? So that national procurement guidelines protect the prevailing system of procurement. Right? And then the simple things, this is all right, because you get the quotations from several parties, and then that is almost like open bidding.
Thank you, Professor. Any more questions to her?
Actually, even Professor Manadu said that government procurement guidelines are there, but we experience the huge corruption in Sri Lanka. So I think if this new technology can accommodate to address that issue, it will be a good move. That is essential, I think.
Since we start a bit late, so hope organizers will give me additional 10 minutes to finish this session. Right, so let's move to our second presenter. The topic is on the impact of material management on cost overruns in the construction projects in Sri Lanka. I hope Professor Manadu is here, and he has a lot of experience on cost overruns. Now it is open for the Q&A from her and her team. Any questions for her? Professor Manadu.
Good afternoon. I'm of Secretary JK Weerasinghe. Actually, in your presentation, you mentioned that you interviewed quantity surveys engineers for that research, but mostly in the construction process, material wasted done by the laborers. So why didn't you take their data to the research?
Do you mean laborers? I taken most of the site engineers and storekeepers on behalf of that, because laborers almost, since they are wasting major of materials during the construction process, I have considered site engineers and storekeepers on behalf of that.
Yeah, I think his question is a very valid question, because one of your findings, it says material wastage at site. So most of the time the wastage could happen from labor. So it will be good if you can add laborers and labor perspective into your research. It will add some more value to your research. Professor Manadu?
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, I think your research is very good, but I think there should be some other inclusions also into your research area, because whenever we are finding that the cost is going to overrun the estimated cost of the project. We use the techniques of cost controlling, and one of them is the value engineering. But the government, the institutional procurement guidelines are, DIBA does, it becomes a hindrance because, various institutions have their own procurement practices. Good example, whenever variation is submitted, the variation approval process is very long. And then nowadays, the government procurement, the government contractors, especially SCC and others, whenever they want to, purchase something, they can't purchase them from the open market like any other contractor. They are governed by their own institutional procurement guideline. When they call the quotations and evaluate, and then coming back to us for when submitting, the contractors, the suppliers say no to it because the time has already lapsed. They are going on the very short period. So I think you have to pay your attention on the procurement guidelines of various institutions as a method of controlling the cost.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Okay, I have one more question. Have you considered design and specification changes, because that could be again another factor which related to material management and which could lead to cost overruns? So have you considered it as a factor? Is there any reason for not considering that factor?
I considered basically regarding only the kind of material from starting from planning stage to material handling on site.
So during material planning, there could be scope changes which could affect and which could lead to cost overrun. So it is good if you can consider design and specification changes and its impact on.
I included in material planning stage, since during the planning stage there was mostly design and specifications.
Okay. So have you mentioned it under your limitations, scope and limitations?
Yes, I included it in the questionnaire survey when I discussed under material planning.
Okay. Any more questions to her?
I also have one question. So during the presentation you have mentioned that whatever material wastage comes from the subcontractor, we are going to deduct that money. It is somewhat controversial, isn't it?
Additional cost.
How are you going to establish that if the mistakes is by the subcontractor?
That answer, I mean that since we allocate some percentage for 5% like that for the certain work scope now, since it goes beyond that, if we can see that deliberately they are purposely wastage material, like most of the time when some subcontractors use their cement bags like one, normally they are cut that from middle part and more, if get it small portion, the rest of the whole cement bag was left at the side in some places. No? In such cases, I think that it would be better if the
how the content service is going to enhance participation in material wastage or material management?
During the cost, preparing BOQs like that.
Cost reconciliation.
Yes.
Okay, if we don't have any more questions, shall we move into our third speaker? So the third topic is on specialized software usage among quantity surveyors in Sri Lanka. Mr. Bandara is here. Any questions to him? Okay, I have one question, Mr. Bandara. So, how much is it feasible to use this modern software like more Revit, Costex in Sri Lankan construction industry, and are we mature enough to implement this modern software? And again, now we all know that IT is now in the school curriculum. So why do you think still there is a lack of interest or enthusiasm to use this modern software in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, what the experts indicated that was still the practice of the IT in the industry is still less, because the existing quantity surveys are still comfortable with going in the way that they are currently practicing. And what they have suggested is to educate the undergraduates or the students, and once they come to the industry, then they will be familiar with, and they will initiate the new softwares. So once they come to the industry, then we feel that the industry will be matured enough to accept the new IT solutions and enhance the QS profession.
Method, because now we know that for a manual method we have certain specifications or standards. Without that, how can we implement all these things rather than getting several software?
So what you indicated is really important. Actually, now even when we get different softwares like Costex, Cubicost or some other softwares, some are not compatible with some others. So it is exactly correct. As well as now we have the standard method of measurement or some other standards to practice in the industry. So with the introduction of the new softwares, again, there should be certain standards, as our other presenter indicated, that BIM execution plan. Likewise, there should be certain government standards or proper common standards should be established in order to practice this in a common forum. So it should be, it's an acceptable answer, sir.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And then
Yeah.
I think...
sorry, may I go ahead? Yeah. Just to add a little bit on Mr. Bandara's clarification. In fact, you said that the quantity surveys are not ready at the moment to fully implement the BIM. But in implementing the BIM, it is not just by the quantity survey, it shall be a collaborative approach. So sorry to tell this, let me call that at the moment, even the quantity surveys are leading the role in implementing BIM. It is in fact basically two other allied professions who are lagging behind at the moment in the industry. Sorry to put this blame on architects and engineers. They are still not willing to adapt to the BIM platform. That is why it is been not there are barriers in implementing BIM at the moment in Sri Lanka, and in relation to the standards, as Dr. Lakmal pointed out, in fact, BIM deals with the providing the necessary platform to define the interoperability among different softwares. So there are interoperable softwares or applications by which you can communicate between different softwares, and the standard methods also incorporated. For example, if you take I would say on-screen taking over softwares, always incorporated with the standard method of measurement. So that is already there. So it's matter of implementing, because now this problem may be only for Sri Lanka, so many other countries they are doing it very successfully. Just to sorry, Rim, just to go back to the question raised on the first presenter as well. I couldn't get the mic on right time, therefore I couldn't come up with the comment. In fact, in relation to the question raised or the concern raised that some of the project you won't be able to implement e-procurement, but in fact, in combination with this particular presentation also, when we are trying to implement BIM, definitely e-procurement has to be there. And so subsequent to the COVID-19 and there is kind of a paradigm shift towards the online or off-site working. So it is very vital that we implement e-tendering also in the industry as much as possible. Thank you.
So this is to Mr. Bandara. Now say, I have a very bad, perhaps Professor Yasangika may not like the comment that I am going to make. That had happened some 10 years back when the new software was introduced to the department. Actually, it was brought by the industry, and then the students were involved in it. And when I went there and asked for a cost plan, they were asking me various questions: what is the material, what's the foundation, the wall, roof, and everything. And then gave me a cost plan. Then I was surprised. That was the those days. It was almost 3 times the cost of the project, because I could forecast the cost by experience on the thumb rule, which I am doing even at present. So what I'm thinking is that there should be always a data bank with the past experience to be used in jointly with the softwares. Otherwise, you won't be able to get a precise forecast on the cost and all.
Yeah, I agree with Buddhi Lanka and Professor Manadu, because in Sri Lankan construction industry, we really lack these cost information databases. So that is something that we should concentrate on. And maybe because of these things, now the industry is more demands for less expensive mobile apps that give quick information, maybe to transfer data from site to the head office. So they prefer to have new mobile apps. So there is a now demand for our quantity surveyors to start developing these different types of apps that would help the industry. So are there any more questions? Or otherwise we can move into the last presenter. So last presenter is Mr. Perera on barrier analysis to implement BIM execution plan in Sri Lankan construction industry. Any questions to him? Okay, I have one question now. UK government once made it compulsory to implement BIM in their construction projects, but they're still trying to achieve, or it is still a bit of challenging task to them. So when it comes to Sri Lanka, why you think that BIM is important for us, and why BIM execution plan should be there for Sri Lanka, and who should develop it? Is it developed by the organizations by themselves, or the authority like SIDA should do it?
The thing is like, ma'am, at the moment, BIM is already in the Sri Lankan construction industry, but the BEP, that execution plan is the thing that not in the Sri Lankan construction industry, because the industry professionals already ask help from the international forum to have that execution plan. But if we make the plan in our construction industry by ourselves, it will lead to lead to have a great opportunity to develop our industry in ourselves, like not depending on the foreign facts.
So who should develop it? When you say industry, industry has many stakeholders.
Yeah. Who's going to lead that? It should be like, it should lead by the organization itself, like the ones who, when it comes to industry, they are a client, construction, professional and all. So if it's designed by the construction owner, like client, with the acknowledgement of client, it will be, he will be have a good idea and he will be have a good knowledge about the projects going on and all. So it should be with the who myself. The ones who giving advices and all.
Okay. Can the conductor fulfill this requirement?
Yes, as a project manager, he can.
Okay, any questions from the audience?
Good afternoon, I'm Junior Officer at WMS. As we have so many number of softwares and the people who are adhering to that, would you think that BIM can be distributed easily in Sri Lanka?
Actually, BIM is already using in Sri Lankan industry. If you get 100 construction projects in Sri Lanka, out of 100, almost 80% of projects already use BIM to as in their ongoing projects.
I'm Hasina Khan. My question is how the higher education system should contribute for BIM implementation for Sri Lanka.
Sorry, can you rephrase it?
Yeah, question is
how the higher education system should contribute for BIM implementation in Sri Lanka.
Actually, if they can upgrade the syllabus, like the practical aspects of BEP, like when and what to use in projects, life cycles, what softwares need in when. If they upgrade such aspects in syllabuses, they will make huge impact on the practical knowledge of undergraduates.
I am Sanindu Amaratunga. My question is, how will your BIM execution improve collaboration between stakeholders?
So moving on with project, execution plan will like it's a guideline, or it's actual document. It's actually document. So with the execution plan, all the stakeholders will get the idea how the project's going on and how the projects will end. So in the beginning of the project, they will get the idea about the end of the project, about the outcome of the project. As if they ask for that document itself, like what is the plan of your, it is same as a plan, like it's the plan but with the BIM technologies and softwares. So they can ask for that as well in the beginning. So they will get the idea about how to use them and when to use them at the beginning itself.
Okay, since I've taken more than I requested, if there is any one more question to anyone, we can take. Otherwise, I'll move into sum up. seems there are no more questions. So, first of all, I must appreciate the good work done by all these researchers. I hope you have done these researches during the most difficult time, COVID, during the close downs, and so I must appreciate all the efforts that you have done in carrying out your research, data collection. It's not an easy task. So, so in this session, we mainly had, I can divide the research into two main areas. One is cost overruns and quantity surveying, one of the main areas in cost management, cost planning. And then the other area is use of software, e-procurement, specialized software, and BIM for construction industry. So one final, couple of comments that I have in these research presentations is most of your researchers were based on quantitative studies, which provide answers to what has happened or what is happening. So I think it will be good for you to move a little bit further and investigate answers to why questions and how questions, why these kind of things happen and how it happened, which gives qualitative feedback, and better if you can use mixed method research approaches which give more conclusive findings. And also there are a lot of new, I can't say new areas, but very, very important areas nowadays to research. For example, like value management, everyone is talking about, Professor Manwad also mentioned the importance of doing value engineering, whole life costing, disaster management. Even in the previous session, they were focused on disaster management and what is quantity surveyors' role in disasters, and change management, design for manufacturing, and now these days we all are talking about how these micro and macroeconomic policies affects our construction industry. So these are some of the areas that our future researchers can focus on. So I would like to see some more research on these emerging areas in next time in your research. So that concludes this session. So I would like to thank Rector of Southern Campus, Major General LCR Jayasooriya, and Dean Dr. H. Lakmal, and Head of QS Department, and all the staff and students for inviting me to chair this session. And from yesterday, the hospitality you were given to all your invitees, it is excellent, superb, and we all are highly impressed with the quality of research as well as the discipline that your students have, and also the support given to us. Even yesterday we tried to walk from here to hostel or the accommodation, but they did not allow us to even walk a small distance. So finally we had to beg and request, okay, we like to watch these premises. Thank you very much for everything. We really appreciate your hospitality from yesterday. That comes to the end of this session. And finally, I would like to thank all the presenters in this session for their informative deliberations today. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the technical session on content surveying, and it's time to award the certificates. To give away the certificates, I would like to invite the chair of the session, Professor Yasangika Sandanayake. GD Weerasinghe and others. SMTN Abeyrathne and others. KPSPK Bandara and TV Edirisinghe. GKE Perera and others. Thank you, madam. Please remain on stage. I cordially invite the Rector Southern Campus, Major General LCR Jayasooriya, RSP, NDC, PSC, accompanied by Dr. A.H. Lakmal, Dean, Faculty of Built Environment and Spatial Sciences, to award the token of appreciation to the session chair, Professor Yasangika Sandanayake. Thank you, sir. The proceedings on technical session on content surveying are hereby concluded, and the proceedings of the session on architecture will begin at 1:30 p.m. I invite you all to enjoy the lunch served at the officers' mess. Thank you and have a pleasant day.